So next up, going beyond the budget, we have a very charismatic sales director who I absolutely love and adore. It is James Vercillo.
All right, good afternoon. My name's James Vercillo. Thanks, Bree, for the lovely introduction. I'm the sales director for the southern region here at Sekuro. Today, we are here to talk about some interesting stuff, right? Most of us look at financials and budgets and get pretty bored by it. I don't. As the people that know me know that I love looking at numbers and love looking at how technology can deliver real financial outcomes. So it's called Beyond the Budget, right? So decoding or demystifying the true value of technology investments. There'll be some people here to join me shortly. First and foremost, Mr. Heng Mok, who is the APJ CISO for Zscaler, who are one of our key technology partners. Heng has been with Zscaler for some time now, I think it's a couple of years, but prior to that had senior roles in at both AGL and National Australia Bank. And let me just say, out of the 4 people that will be on this stage, 3 of us are Victorians. So finally, we're starting to level the numbers because we're here in force as well. Heng, welcome. Come up.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. We also have 2 iconic Australian brands, both ASX-listed organisations, here to join us on the stage today. I would say that everyone in this room would be a customer or have been a customer of one, but more likely both of these organisations. And I have to admit that not only are they important clients for Sekuro, and we value the relationship that we have, they're also very important organisations for the Australian economy and Australia in general. So first and foremost, I'll invite Mr. Steve Wilkinson from Reece Group, Head of Technology Operations. And Mr. Mark Taylor. It's a great name. It's not the former Australian Test captain and legend, but just as important. Thanks, Mark. So, decoding the true value of technology investments. What does this mean? How do we continue to invest in technology that has a measurable impact? I will give Gartner a plug. Noel's given him a bit of a whack or a slap. I'll give him a plug. I have this terminology they use, which is digital dividends, right? How do you measure not only the financial gains and return on investment for technology, but also how do you measure the intangibles, right? How do you measure the other invisible gains and benefits potentially? So I'll take a seat and join the guys. Another round of applause, please, for the guys. Hey, I don't have the pleasure of having the presenter screen with my questions, so I have paper. The first one, I might ask yourself, Heng. It's around efficiency versus expenditure. There's often a belief in organisations that investing more in technology directly reduces vulnerability. From your experiences, have you seen instances where a substantial investment in technology has not reduced the vulnerabilities of an organisation, and can you share some examples?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, when you think about, digital transformation as an example, where, security hasn't been embedded within an organization, within the processes, within the shift left process, then, essentially, potentially at that particular point in time, what you've done is you've increased the risk within an organization, you've increased the attack surface, you've got processes and procedures which have also introduced greater cost over the larger time, and then from a remediation perspective, then essentially you are increasing the remediation costs. So instead of an outcome where things are done line with the business strategy and in line with where the business needs to go. At that particular point in time, you've seen a sprawl of new technology being implemented. You've seen new business processes being duplicated, and essentially you've seen security vulnerabilities being implemented at a large scale, which I think means that from a risk perspective, every organization is having to look at that, remediate, and then go through that particular process. So that's probably one example that I can sort of put out there and that I've seen of where digital transformation has, I guess, clearly from a business perspective been more important than, I guess, embedding the trust aspect within the platform itself.
Thanks. And I think part of Charmaine's panel earlier with the magic wands and the show, there was a point made around the investment in technology, but not the uptake, the integration, the actual utilisation of that technology properly, right? There's no point spending all this money on something you're not actually going to use as a business, right? And we see it a lot. And in this day and age, we look at cyber insurance being so prevalent, so important for every organisation. The cost of it's going up. Even I can tell you Sekuro's cost has gone up big time in the last year or two. It can be a checkbox activity, right? So you go and spend all this money, don't actually implement it, don't actually turn it on, don't migrate the organisation to it. So it's just that tick in a box.
Yeah, do you mind?
Mark.
I'll just jump in as well to get an early one in, I think. I think one of the things I've noticed over the last little while is the things that do go well is where the problem you're trying to solve, you work with the people impacted on that problem, that's going to happen, and then you find the right tech after that. And so I think maybe it's not a case of necessarily like wasting money almost, but I think delayed return on investment maybe is more the thing here. And so I think the big thing I've learnt over the last few years is really engaging those people that are impacted, getting their input and taking that on board to then help select the technology as well.
Good. Steve?
Probably a slight difference there on a bit of a build. Getting investment at Reece has never been particularly hard in technology, but one of the flip sides of that is there's often this, money is a silver bullet to solve things, and often it absolutely isn't, right? So it's always that we can invest, we can do what we need to do, but it's just making sure you really are spending in the right places. Pretty simple.
Yep, and with the world in certain industries and certain areas at the moment, the last couple of years, it's not as easy to access for many organisations, right, the funding. So, all right, moving on. Next question's around risk and the assessment of risk. So, such a plethora of tools available in the market. How do you prioritise the tools you invest in? It's sort of touching on the previous point as well. And is there a systematic risk assessment process that you undertake to identify where to invest? Mark, I saw you nodding. You're on a roll.
Is that on? Sorry, yep, perfect. A very good question. I took it in a slightly different direction around risk, but sort of linked to the first answer almost. What I want to talk about is one of the tools I think we're trialling, almost using recently to help get broader visibility of the tools that we're looking at, or the problems we're looking at solving first before getting the tools in. So just to align with our technology, we're a security team and a wider technology team. They use a tech radar, a ThoughtWorks company put out, and for a number of years now. We've modified that, a very simplified version. We align to like NIST framework, and so we put our tools on that, and it really helps the conversation, I think, around what are the tools that we're looking on sort of moving out the door, what are the things that are coming in that we're really interested in, and then sort of using that to have the conversation, I think, which has been really powerful. So I think that goes to the priority rather than the risk, though.
Yeah, good one, mate. Thank you. Heng?
I was probably just going to add to that. When you start thinking about the outcomes that you need to deliver from a security perspective, the important part around that is linking that to the business problems, or where the business is actually heading. Is there a regulatory type mandate? It's looking at all those particular drivers, and risk, I think, forms one aspect of that, because there's going to be a number of those other enablement capabilities that your security strategy needs to cater for, right? From a risk perspective, you can go out and not eliminate risk. You can go and make things extremely difficult for your business, which you may be having a risk outcome, but it's not a good business outcome. So I think that the risk discussion forms part of that particular piece around managing within the risk appetite of an organization. And the other things that we've started to see now is more mature organizations are starting to, I guess, link risk back to a commonality around all their other operational risk frameworks. So, whether that is analyzing it from the perspective of annualized loss expectancy and the scenario playing around that. So being able to, I guess, take that approach of, risk is I guess, consumed and calculated in this way from a monetary perspective, from credit risk all the way through to, fraud risk and so forth. Can we apply cyber risk in the same context? Do that sort of scenario planning against it and go, well, the investment in the control will cost X, but the reality is that this event will happen once in a year or once in 10 years. Is there that sort of investment required to accept that risk or actually move it on? So I think there is sort of a more actual-based approach towards risk management happening now, because of the financial sort of impacts associated with investment and looking at that return holistically.
Thank you. And going on from that, from our view, it's now easier. Our jobs aren't easy in sales, Noel. They're not that easy. But it's easier to sell cybersecurity than it is to buy cybersecurity these days, right? So it's identifying where it makes sense, obviously going back to the investment piece, but also looking at, and this is a bit of a question maybe for yourself, Steve, and it's around how do you decide when to, with so many of the vendors looking now to expand and broaden their portfolio, and let's just call it step on each other's toes, how do you know when to really align yourself to a particular vendor, or when you may look to spread the risk a little bit?
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult one. Personally, my method is always really getting close to the vendor, and getting someone who can actually come into our business, understand. We're a pretty complex business. We don't just sell plumbing parts. There's a whole heap behind the scenes, and so getting a vendor who understands the way it all links together is a key thing for me. So I just really want to make sure that I've got that relationship up front. That's the sort of very simple thing for me.
Good, thank you. Okay, so the next question's around implementation challenges. So, as we know, a tool is only as good as its implementation. It's been a bit of a theme today, it seems. Can you discuss the challenges faced during the integration of high-cost tech tools and how they might sometimes amplify risks instead of mitigating them? Mark.
So coming from an operations background, the first risk almost I think to is we put a new tool in and that creates some benefit, but also the downside is if there's an issue with that tool, often we're in line, and so very conscious, I think, of causing business outages almost off the back of that tool. So that's the one that jumps to mind immediately. Some interesting, I guess I don't know if I classify these as risks, but two things that sort of pop up in my mind almost more recently with these implementations, I think, are creating a false sense of security. And so just having that conversation, a tool doesn't necessarily mean we've got all of the pieces to that puzzle in place. We haven't paid for all the features. So just being very clear what we are getting out of that. So there's not a sort of an expectation of beyond that, I think, is important. And the final one I think that plays a little bit more a role now is the finance side as well. I feel I'm almost on the harder side of the negotiations, the more and more we lock into vendors and these things as well. And so, again, maybe not a risk, but something that's playing on my mind a little bit. So just thought I'd raise that and see.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll add to that is, change management and actually, ensuring that there's adoption of the capability, right? There's nothing worse than implementing a new capability and set and forget after the implementation. There isn't any user adoption. It becomes a expensive OpEx exercise for many organizations. So I guess the change management, having the right people on board, having the employees understanding the why aspect of it as well becomes quite important. And then, the adoption piece, right? With a lot of, new capability now, there's features, there's changes, there's things which are continuous. So it's building that mindset of an operating model where you're continually implementing, you're continually changing, you're continually adapting to, what the capability is. So it's never a sort of a set and forget. It's always got some form of control optimization, which needs to happen from an ongoing basis in a lot of these capabilities.
I think it was either Berin or Sarah earlier said that one of the things they want partners to stop saying is just buy it and it works, right? So again, another theme for the day. All right, this is a really cool one, an interesting one, the human factor. All right, so how do you balance the investment between technology and training personnel? And given that many security breaches and tech failures are the result of human error, how much emphasis should be placed on continuous training in awareness, in contrast to merely buying more sophisticated tools? Mr. Wilkinson.
Yeah. We've got over 600 retail stores and over 7,000 people. And most of the people that work in those places are not that interested in tech and certainly not in security. At least they weren't a few years ago. And so we've been on a program for a while to try and improve that. And we used to put a lot of tech out there. We used to throw technology, again, getting funding a few years ago wasn't that hard. So that was okay, getting things out there, but the training aspect has been huge. How do we get all our team members to get on board and understand the risks? And so we have significant we have significant programs in place to roll out training, and it's continuous. And we put up a lot of effort and a lot of time into making it very simple for our team members to report issues they find, be that simple stuff within email or social engineering activity, anything at all, and to make it easier than to get back so we can help them. There's a continuous program that goes on. Our branches are very good at running weekly, monthly, quarterly themes across the business. So we incorporate all our security and our general tech into those themes as well. So it's a thing that's constantly in them every single day. And we report all the good stories back to the rest of the business and obviously tell the teams out in the branches how well they're going as well. So it really just that reinforcement we find is the best way, and it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, but it works really, really well. And we've seen in our metrics, in our data that the amount of issues that we're finding is coming down rapidly from a user point of view. So it's working pretty well to the point where we're actually probably worse off in our offices than we are in our branches. There's probably more people who are falling foul to the simple things than they are out in the branch network, which is fantastic. They're listening to us, hopefully.
I love the fact that for any new Reece Group employee, whether it be a salesperson or a new head of cyber or CIO, they spend a month at a branch. Is it a month?
Well, it's more. Most employees, 1 month.
Yep.
Any execs, 6 months. And most people at my level, 3 months. So
That's full time.
Full time, yeah. You don't do your day job. You go out and do that. It's the first thing you do when you come to Reece, and then every year you get reinforced. So I'm just about to do another 4 weeks. Even though I've been there nearly 10 years, I'm about to do another 4 weeks.
Thanks. Heng?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a scaling game as well, right? So, how do you actually, scale cybersecurity outside a centralized team? It's, you got to invest in the people. You have to, provide that awareness, the context and sort of building that DNA in the organization, I think becomes extremely important because, at the end of the day, I think that where you want to sort of get to is it becomes second nature. So it's almost like a OH&S, type type response. Everyone gets measured on it. Everyone, embraces the culture of security, and it becomes embedded in the DNA, which means that I think the organization as a whole benefits from, that sort of culture of everyone, going in the same sort of way. So I think, it's an extremely important part of any sort of cyber program, and the continuous investment in education, in context, in building those relationships with the business, building cyber champions throughout the organization that can scale your voice and team, and cybersecurity being pretty transparent on some of those issues to be able to scale that out through the organization.
Cool. Mark, do you have anything to add there? No. Okay. We actually have a minute left. Is there a question from the audience? Not one? All right, on that. Oh, we do.
How are you guys approaching the rise of generative AI within your employee base? And do you have any policies or anything in place around that?
We are rapidly writing policies, we are, probably the main thing is that we're hearing from our branch network, the people who a few years ago we thought were not techie, are saying, why aren't you doing these, why aren't you doing that? And we're just, obviously, we want to embrace that, but at the same time tell 7,000 people out there that one thing at a time, we've just got to make sure we get everything lined up in the background first. So we're actually hearing more from our branch network than we are necessarily internally in our tech groups and our other groups in the head office, which is crazy. Great, but yeah.
Yeah, so we've set up an internal ChatGPT-like capability. So obviously, from the usage perspective, the initial days we saw a lot of usage of the public side of the organisation. So we've essentially looked at that. We've taken the capability. We're building it internally, and you've got functions such as knowledge management, policy sort of inquiries that all employees can make. The developers have started using it for things like prompt engineering internally, writing emails. So there's been a whole lot of, I guess, speed to value type capabilities that we've brought in-house around that.
Thank you. Join me in thanking Steve, Mark and Heng for their great insights.